Now, some of the most asked questions that I receive on a day-to-day basis really just come down and involve what watches should I buy for this amount of budget to build a collection? And that question at the surface might seem easy to answer, but it's really involved because there's so many things to consider and different variables when thinking of the best watch for someone, depending on just their collecting philosophy, what they want, and then all the watches that, of course, are on the market. There's a lot to choose from. So what I wanted to do with maybe a new series as well with this video is look at different price budgets to build the best collection that we possibly can, give some different options. And today we're gonna be looking at $1,000, but how this is gonna work, just to make this, I think, a little more entertaining, is I developed 7 different buying or collecting personas. And what I'm going to do is be giving some options affiliated with those different personas that I think would be a good fit. Now let's first look at these different personas. First, we have the check off the boxes. This is the type of collector that needs to have a watch for every single scenario, even if one of the scenarios never happens. It just helps them sleep at night. The next type of collector we have here is the one watch collection. This is the type of person that tries their best to find one watch that can meet all of their needs and finds joy in the simplicity of reaching for one watch every single day. Next persona we have is the hipster. This type of collector can't stand having anything mainstream, so spending late nights watching reviews of small micro brands is what really gets them going. And they also just bought a new AeroPress and are excited to tell you about it. The next persona we have is the Diver Fanatic. This collector is fascinated with the world of dive watches and loves raving about their ISO certification divers that really only get to see their 4-foot above ground pool. Persona 5, we have the perfect duo. This type of collector likes simplicity, very similar to the one watch collection guy, but could never settle for just one watch. So they opt to go for a balance of finding a dress-oriented piece with a sports everyday piece. Number 6 here, we have the formal collector. This individual either loves dressing in formal attire or is required to wear it for their occupation, and their casual look is most people's going out in the town type of look. So they value simplicity, yet will require at least 2 dress watches to match their many outfits. And then finally, to finish it all out, we have the quartz lover. This person doesn't really care about the mechanical components. They just want something that is reliable, accurate, and will tell you all about how their quartz watch is more accurate over a month than your mechanical watch is over a day. All right, so before we jump in here and look at these different choices, just a couple ground rules. I want to keep this to $1,000, and that is the total budget for all of the watches being selected here. When appropriate as well, going through these different lists, I also gave a couple different options that might be appropriate. And of course, because I'm doing all of these, there's just so endless possibilities with building a collection. I can't name every single watch. So I'd love to see in the comments down below what type of collector of the 7 that we named here are you, as well as what would be your choice for building a $1,000 collection. Okay, so now for our first persona here, we have the check off the boxes collector. And for this, I wanted to kind of document the different watches that I think would be representative of somebody that was looking to check off the boxes. So we're gonna have to kind of spread ourselves a little bit thinner here and be maybe not as selective, but try to knock off all these different areas. So what I was thinking was you need to have a dress watch, an everyday style watch that could be a little casual, a diver of some sort, a chronograph, and then some other type of complication that can help just kind of fill everything out. So where to start first, and I think if you're trying to just break down the budget, maybe go for the bigger fish first, looking at the chronograph. And what I thought would make a really good idea would just be the Seagull 1963. I'd go for the acrylic option so I can get the price a little bit down so we have a little bit more money to play with here. If you wanted to, you probably could find one with a sapphire for a little bit more, but in terms of mechanical chronographs at a more affordable price tier, Seagull, I think they're probably the more viable option that you can really find unless you're trying to go for some mecha quartz chronographs out there. But if you do want to stay true to the mechanicals, I think this 1963 is a great option. It's a very beloved option. And, despite being a Seagull and maybe having, of course, being Chinese constructed, I think this is a really good value to start us off for a chronograph. Now for our next dress watch that I think can also maybe walk a little bit into the casual territory, we have the SRPD37. And I think this is an interesting watch because it takes a lot of those amazing elements from a dial that I think is just absolutely fantastic from Seiko, but is a little bit more different, and I think will nicely complement the rest of this collection. We have a nice green dial here that's just fantastic, that kind of stereotypical, but never really gets boring dial from Seiko or from these Presage models. But I think that green just gives it an extra little bit of splash that will kind of round out our collection here. For around $350 or so, I think this is a really interesting buy. You're getting the 4R35 movement, which I think is very doable. And if this then kind of lends into being our more, I would say, dress-oriented piece within the collection, I don't think you have to worry too much about beating up that Hardlex crystal, because we'll also have some watches here that we can maybe mess around with a little bit more. Okay, so now that we have about $700 now already spent with 2 watches, we're gonna need to stretch a little bit more here in terms of just making some more conventional picks that also are relatively very affordable. And I think when we're talking about a diver, the one that makes the most sense, especially for this type of collection and the price that we have it at, is the Orient Mako II. And I think I want to go with the black dial, something that's very just conventional, easy to work with, a bunch of different outfits, but also would just look great in a lot of different scenarios. For $140, you're really not gonna get much better. You have an in-house movement, 200 meters of water resistance. You're not getting an ISO certified diver, but what you're getting here is something that can be worn casually. It can be worn in a lot of different environments, and it's just something that you don't really have to worry about. And it makes a lot of sense for something of this amount of value that you're getting for $140. Really can't beat it. Now for our more casual, everyday style watches, there's a bunch of different watches you can go for, but I think looking at the Seiko 5, as with the money that we have left, we don't have that much money on the table left here. Seiko 5 makes a ton of sense, and I wanted to go for something that's a little bit different, has casual components, but also could complement nicely with maybe putting it on a leather strap to maybe dress it up a little bit more, and that is the SNK793. I think we always hear about the SNK 800 series all the time for around the same price, and those are great watches as well. But I think here I really wanted to go for a watch that had some versatility, could be dressed up if needed to a certain degree, and really complement the rest of the collection with a nice blue dial. And I think this is a really just solid pick for $90. And then to finish out our collection here, we have the cheapest option of the bunch, but possibly the most useful, and that is the Casio World Time. And for around $25 to get a World Time complication from this type of watch, a watch that you don't have to worry about. It can also complement when maybe you're not feeling the diver, to be something that you can maybe do some water activities with, wear on a summer day, and just have a lot of fun with. I think the Casio World Time from a value perspective is a great option. So just to unpack our picks here from this first option, we have the Seagull 1963 as our chronograph. For the dress watch, we have the SRPD37J1. And then for the diver, we have the Orient Mako II. And then following with our casual watch, we have the Seiko SNK793. And then to finish it out, we have our Casio World Time. Okay, so moving right along to collection number 2, we have the one watch collection. And yes, I think it is possible to have a one watch collection. I know a lot of people that would make them go insane. I don't think they could ever do it, but I kind of like that idea of simplicity. So this type of person, I think they need something that could be versatile in all different scenarios, maybe isn't able to do both ends perfectly in terms of being the most rugged watch as well as being the most dressy watch, but something that when necessary can do the job. So to start us off here, we have the Damasko DS30. Now this watch comes in at $1,000. It has a very wearable case coming from a really just, I think, kind of almost underappreciated German manufacturer. 39 millimeters, I think, is a great size for an everyday wear. You're also getting an elevated ETA 2824-2 movement, which is easy to work on in terms of a servicing and regulating. So you're getting a little bit of peace of mind there while also getting some performance. 200 meters of water resistance. But I think the most important thing here, which is really a great selling point for Damasko, is you have a watch that's going to look the part even after banging it around like crazy. They have amazing case treatment on their watches. In terms of the Vickers hardness scale, I think they're on 1200 HV. So this thing, I hear people all the time saying they've had it for 6 months, a year, and there's no scratches on these things. So I think for around $1,000, you want the one watch with its very Germanic utilitarian style dial. I think you're getting something that, of course, could be a little bit casual when pairing it with the right strap, which you can probably pair a ton of different straps on this watch, very similar to the Zin 556, which was just a little bit out of reach here for trying to stay to $1,000, but also with wearing it maybe with a kind of more dressed up strap, maybe a reptilian strap, could probably do the job in dressier scenarios. Not perfect, but I think a great one watch if you're looking for one for $1,000. The other option we have here is the Seiko SARX055. So this really is the mini snowflake. And if you've ever seen one of these in person, they are pretty impressive. You're getting a pretty wearable case size of 40.8 millimeters and a price just under $1,000 at $950. The one gripe with this watch that I will say is The 6R15 I think might be getting closer to $1,000. It's kind of a lot to ask, but what you're missing there in terms of the movement, you're getting added benefit with the case finishing and the dial finishing. This thing looks fantastic. The dial honestly looks like a Grand Seiko style dial, and those are some of the best in the price tier, and we're talking thousands of dollars for those watches. So what you're getting here for around $950 in that standpoint of view is amazing. Plus you're getting a titanium case, which is really interesting and will really allow you under $1,000 to have a Grand Seiko type experience. And then for one final option here, I wanted to look at something that was a little bit more vintage inspired, and that is the Hamilton Pilot Pioneer Mechanical. So we're saving a little bit more money here for $845. You're getting a smaller case size, 36 millimeters, but you're getting a hand-wound ETA 28012 movement. You're also getting 100 meters of water resistance and a sapphire crystal. But I think for this watch here, you're getting more of that vintage element. You're getting from a brand that I think does a really good job. Also, from a movement standpoint of view, I think you're getting a lot there. Swiss-made caliber, around $850. I think it's a really good option that'll allow you to utilize it in a lot of different scenarios. And then one final option, just kind of as a honorable mention, I wanted to offer up Stowa. I think they're also a great option here with the Flieger Classic 40 millimeters. But 4 amazing options, I think, for this everyday watch that can really walk the line in all different scenarios. Now next up, for our next type of collector, we have the hipster, and this is somebody who's gonna probably spending most of their time looking at micro brands. I'm gonna be only showcasing micro brands in this tier. And now in terms of how I think that we're gonna be wearing them, I think they're gonna be tend to be a little more casual in terms of how they wear their watches. So I'm probably gonna go a little bit more sports oriented. So to start here, I'm looking at a diver that I think is just a really impressive watch for the money, and that is the Traska Freediver. Now, I reviewed the Traska Summiteer and I was just incredibly impressed with that watch, and I really love just this mint green dial that comes with the Freediver. For around $400, you're getting a lot there, a great bracelet from my experience, as well as I think the best selling point on this watch is just the case treatment. Very similar to the Damasko, we have a hardness of the case at 1200 HV. And in my review of the Summiteer, I did a really interesting side-by-side of a untreated link from the bracelet of the Summiteer from Traska, as well as a treated link, and I just went at it with a paperclip. And the untreated one scratched up really easy, but I was just grinding on the one that was treated and no sign of wear. I think for $400, you're getting a very unique product, and I think for a ceramic bezel too, I think there's a lot of punch being packed here for $400. Now for the other watch that I want to pair here is the Bi-Compacts from Baltic. I think Baltic is one of the more tasteful micro brands in terms of their design, so I'm a big fan of what they're doing. And I know you're still getting a Seagull movement, so you're paying a little bit more than you would for the 1963 from a collection 2 collections ago. But from a style and design standpoint, I think you're getting something that far exceeds it. And I just think from my perspective, it's just a really tasteful looking watch for around $500–600. And then for another option for another pairing within this hipster type of collector is I think you could go for the Brewmastergraph, which I think is a really cool, unique design chronograph using a Mecha Quartz movement for around $375, which I think for that, I think is relatively in the realm of easy possibility, because I think you're making up for it, and it's making up for it in the areas of design from Brew, and I'm a big fan of what they do there. As well as looking at the Unimatic U1F. This one comes in $575, 300 meters of water resistance, and I think from this is a kind of a micro brand that I think is really elevated as of late. They have these kind of I would say more minimalist style divers, something you don't really see, but the design just work in my opinion. I think they're very tasteful, and from somebody that's maybe a hipster, I could see someone really gravitating towards both of these watches. One has a coffee under theme, so I think that makes a ton of sense here. Now next up for our collections here, we have the Diver Fanatic. And for this first one, I wanted to focus on an ISO certified diver from Orient with the Orient Triton/Neptune. And I think this is a very good option for around, I'd say around $400. I see these fluctuating quite a bit on the open market, but for this, you're getting a really nice, reliable diver watch, getting a sapphire crystal, an in-house caliber. I think just a great watch for the money, and you have a few different color options to choose from. Another watch that I wanted to include in this list, if somebody, and what I've always found with dive watch people is it doesn't matter how many dive watches they have, they can always have more. And I don't know why that is for dive watch people more than pretty much anybody, any other type of collector out there. But let's go for another ISO certified diver with the Citizen ProMaster Automatic. Again, we're getting a nice depth rating. We're getting a Miyota movement, the 8203, water resistance of 200 meters, also ISO certified, and a pretty wearable case of 48 millimeter lug to lug across with that 42 millimeter case. So we're getting pretty wearable case, and for 250 bucks, definitely an option for somebody who loves divers. And then 2 other dive watches to include in this list, because I think this is a list that really would be in alignment with somebody who's in love with dive watches, is from Deep Blue, their Diver 1000. Case size and wearability, I think will match that, very similar to the SKX. I think the SKX can certainly be put in here, but I think the color options that are available, as well as getting elevated NH35 compared to the 7S26, is going to be working in this watch's favor, plus price that are going to kind of be even less than the SKX. So I think this made a lot of sense to include. And then to round out our list of divers for our Diver Fanatic collector, we have the Vostok Amphibia. Really nothing to be said. $80 or less for these things. They're funky, they're fun. For the type of person that's into dive watches, I think it makes a ton of sense to include it. 200 meters of water resistance. The things could be regulated like crazy. I've heard people just getting insane accuracy out of these things for what they are and how affordable they are. And I think most people that buy Vostok watches, probably the most passionate type of collectors out there. I've yet to see anybody have like a cult-like following like Vostok do. If you say anything bad about Vostok, they'll come for you. So I think that's a good 4 diver watch collection for our Fanatic diver watch, all coming now, 4 of them together for under $1,000. So I think that's a good situation there for our divers. Okay, so moving right along to our next type of collection, we have the perfect duo. So we want to have a perfect dichotomy here with the watches that we're going to be selecting. So one a little bit more dress-oriented watch, another watch that's going to be more sporty, diver-oriented that we can really beat around. And first, I want to look at the Marine Classic 40 millimeters from Stowa. And I think this is a very intriguing watch for around that $600 range, giving us still a good amount of options to choose from with the money left over from our total budget. You're getting an ETA 2824-2 automatic movement within the $670 watch, I think is intriguing. You have a nice case size, 40 millimeters, and you have a nice thickness of 9.2 millimeters. So it's gonna be very wearable, sapphire crystal, and Stowa, I think from a value for money standpoint of view, one of the best out there. Now to complement it, I have a more conventional pick, but I also want to kind of throw it in there, the Seiko SKX. So you can find these now. These things are going way more expensive than they used to be, but this is what I think you can do. If you can find it for a little under $300, you can also maybe get some different modding parts that you can throw in there, depending on what you want to do, maybe change out the bezel and things of that nature, so you can have a little bit more fun with it. But what really can't be said about the SKX, yes, you're getting some limitations in terms of the movement. It's a little outdated in certain specs, but you can have a lot of fun as a collector in terms of the modding community if you want to kind of go down that route and kind of age with your SKX. So I think that's a really interesting option. You'll have a nice mix between this and the Stowa. And then for one other option, looking at this perfect duo here, I also wanted to include 2 other watches. First, from a diver point of view, looking at the Tissot Seastar. Now, when it comes to Tissot, I think a lot of people just consider a lot of their amazing options, and it makes total sense why they would consider Tissot in this regard, is a lot of their dress-oriented, more everyday style pieces. They really overlook their dive watches, and I think the Seastar is delivering a lot of interesting and compelling value for money here from what you're looking at. You're getting 80-hour power reserve movement, a sapphire crystal, Swiss caliber, and really nice depth rating on this watch and a lot of different colors to choose from. And then to round it out from the dress point of view, I think the Orient Star Classic is a great choice. Sure, you probably could go with the Orient Bambino here with a little bit more affordable option, but I think the Orient Star Classic is a really intriguing watch. You're getting a nice case size, really nice finishing with the applied indices, as well as getting a cool added complication at the 12 o'clock with the power reserve. So I think it's just an awesome watch, really interesting, and I think would make a really good perfect duo if you wanted to go that route instead. Now for our 6th type of collector, we have the more formal type of wearer. And for this, I wanted to have 2 watches that I think would be very representative of somebody that would be wearing more formal attire, one that might lean a little bit more casual, but also are very different between the two while still being relatively dressy. Now first I want to look at the Hamilton Bolton Mechanical. Now I think this is one of the more overlooked watches from Hamilton overall. It's a square style dial, and I think that's kind of interesting. I can see somebody that wants a more dress-oriented watch, wanting a square style dress watch in their collection. You're getting a hand winding movement, around $850 for this watch, a Swiss-based caliber, 50 meters of water resistance, and just a really clean, just kind of classic looking style that looks very vintage Hamilton. So I think that's a great option. And then for the other watch that I want to look at, it's the Orient Bambino Small Seconds. I think this could play both sides of the arena here in terms of where it's residing. Definitely has the dressy components, but having a 40mm case certainly is going to be relatively wearable, and depending on the strap, will really change the way that this watch is going to wear. Owning a couple Bambinos in the past, I think their versatility is often overlooked. Some are going to be a little more dressy than others, but I think getting a sub-seconds watch for this affordable, you're getting an in-house, another, again, caliber from Orient, and for around 150 bucks is a great go-to for this. And then as one other option for the formal attire wearer, I wanted to look at the Mito Baroncelli. I've mentioned the Mito Baroncelli heritage so many times on this channel, but I wanted to go for something a little bit different. The 38mm case variant of the Mito Baroncelli. This is non-heritage version. 38mm case, you're getting a Swiss-based caliber, 80-hour power reserve. You'll often get from the Swatch Group lineup of watches. So I think really good value here. You're getting sapphire crystal as well. So, and I think it just leans a little bit more casual. So this could be kind of worn on a more day-to-day basis, and can probably still even look good with a pair of jeans and maybe even a t-shirt. And then for the other option within this duo, I wanted to also feature another square watch from this side of things, looking a little bit more affordable, looking at the Seiko SUP880. Being a rectangular watch, it's 38.4mm by 27.5mm. This is going to be a rather small watch. It's solar powered though. You're getting a Hardlex crystal, but for $99, I think this is a no-brainer. It will really complement the Mito Baroncelli quite well, considering that we spent nearly $900 on that pick. So now for our last type of collector, we have the quartz lover. And this person doesn't care about your automatic or mechanical watches. They just want reliability and accuracy. And they're getting exactly that with our first choice, which I think would be a great recommendation for somebody to kind of base out their collection and be a very versatile piece, the Casio Oceanus, reference OCW S100. So you can find these for a little bit under $500. You're getting a really wearable case size of 41mm, sapphire crystal, titanium case, 100 meters of water resistance. You have an atomic clock, solar powered. This thing is gonna last quite a long time. And also in terms of its finishing, I think pretty impressive what you're getting from Casio. I think a lot of people overlook this watch just based on the name on the dial, but this Casio Oceanus is a great round out piece, a very stylish piece as well from Casio that I think is very appropriate for under $500. Could be a great quartz everyday option. Now for these next two, I wanted to provide two different types of watches depending on the type of collector that will be here for this quartz collector. But one's a little bit more sporty and has some cool history attached to it. The other one is just an incredibly accurate quartz dress piece that is going to be small, but what you're getting from a movement and accuracy standpoint might really just get somebody that loves quartz watches really excited. So first we're looking at the Bulova Lunar Pilot. You're getting a high accuracy quartz movement here. A large case, 45mm, so this is really gonna maybe not be perfect for everybody out there and probably size a lot of people out, but also you're getting a watch that made its way to the moon and has some really interesting history and backstory behind it from a very classic brand in Bulova. And for those maybe wanting to scratch that Omega Speedmaster itch, but have this $1,000 price tier to work with, I think is a great solution. The other option is the Seiko Dolce. And this watch, yes, very small, 33mm in terms of its case size, but for the movement here, we're getting a Seiko 8J41, and in terms of accuracy, we're looking at 1 second per month. So this thing is crazy accurate. You're getting a sapphire crystal, yes, 33mm in terms of the case size, but if somebody that wants a classic wearing piece that also is powered by a very high accurate quartz, I think this is a no-brainer for around $450. And depending on what the person went for here, Bulova Lunar Pilot or Seiko Dolce, they still have a little bit of money left over here, and they can go for a classic, the G-Shock DW5600, a way to kind of round out the collection. Nothing really needs to be said anymore. I think this, from a wearability standpoint of view, the 5600 case models, I think just wear perfectly on a wide variety of wrists. You're getting a backlit screen, 200 meters of water resistance, a wearable case, all for $99. And the thing is practically indestructible and will last you pretty much forever, even if you don't take that good of care of it. All right, guys, so now we looked at 7 different types of collections. Which one did you like the most? Let me know in the comments down below. What type of collector are you? Did you like going through this? Was this a fun video? If it is, I can do this for a ton of different price tiers. I want to start with $1,000 because often I'm asked that quite just frequently, and I thought it made a lot of sense for people out there looking to get started and kind of giving some guidance there. But if you did like it, leave a comment down below, say what you'd like to see next from a different price tier, and also say which different collector did you like the most in terms of the recommendations provided, and then your choice for your favorite watches that you would select for under $1,000. Also guys, if you want to stay up to date with new content, giveaways, be sure to be following me on Instagram. I'm also taking some awesome photos of watches, so it's a great way to kind of stay up to date with me, as well as kind of having more of a personal kind of connection with me, and I usually like to respond to comments as much as I can there. So guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.